Welcome back. It's cool.
The principal officers of the state, of the House of Assembly, the Speaker has been impeached.
All right, sir.
The Deputy Speaker has been impeached. They have been impeached on the ground that, one, they left their official responsibility without an official notice. Two, for not to be able to coordinate the House of Assembly members, trying to divide the House of Assembly members. Three, holding the states hostage with the responsibility the whole to have render for this state to move forward. Four, for relating or revealing official secrets of the state to some interested party outside the government. Five, for misappropriation of the House of Assembly fund. Six, for signing a resolution that the House of Assembly members did not know about. That is the resolution of allowing the past government to get 5 billion naira bond from steering bank without being passed in this allo chamber. It is the normal numbers of people in the House of Assembly that are impeached. The figure. Yes. Look, let me tell you this. You see, when we come to the issue of figure, not figure, House of Assembly has their own culture. We have our own law. We have the way we operate. We have the way we run things. It is not my duty to tell you figure. It is an administrative function. And you cannot allow me to, as a public servant, to go and be doing the duty of an administrator. Right. That is not my own duty.
I want to take loan of about 2 billion from CBN. This for SME and all. And you're asking for 10% of it. Where will I find that from? I'm not giving anybody a dime. I'm not giving anybody a dime. If they are popular, what are they doing in Lagos? If they are popular, if they are on ground, those people pushing them was disgraced out of office here by EKITI people. If they could not keep themselves in office, it is the House of Assembly that will keep them. They should be reminded, I am governor of EKITI, I'm here. EKITI affair remains EKITI affairs. So, I am telling them very expressly, I will resist any attempt to hold us to ransom in this state. That won't work.
And you know, in Nigeria now, 16 is greater than 19 in the NGF. In Rivers, 5 is greater than 28. In those states, 5 is greater than 20. And in EKITI yesterday, 7 is greater than 19. That is the new democratic situation in Nigeria.
Just a brief outlook of what transpired earlier, especially in EKITI State House of Assembly. We spoke also with legal practitioner Festus Keyamo, who says that journalists should not even identify with the so-called new speaker as a speaker of the House, that probably media hype might also contribute to all of the challenges in EKITI, saying that there is no legal way 7 members of the House could have impeached the Speaker of the House. Number one, they did not form a quorum, and number two, they did not even amount to 2/3 of the majority of the House to have done that. Well, I still have with me the political scientist, Dr. Dele Ashiru. The big question has always been, is 7 greater than 19? But you heard Falano here, they talked about the history of this disparity in figures. First, with the NGF, we had the presidency identifying with the Jonah Jang led faction that won with 16 over 19. We also saw it at the River State House of Assembly, where 5 members met. And of course, Edo presently, there are also 2 houses of assembly there, 5 PDP members, as you know, and other 20 members meeting at the State House. What do you make of all of these figure challenge at this time?
Well, thank you very much. I don't want to look at it from a figure challenge perspective. I want to look at it, you know, from the danger it portends for Nigeria's democracy. You see, what is playing up, and like I made the point earlier, none of this, where is EKITI people in all of this permutation? You could see a bunch of, you know, individuals trying to defend their spheres of influence, trying to defend, I mean, what I would call their pot of porridge. Look, let me make the point that there's nothing in the extant books of Nigeria or anywhere in the world that says that the Speaker of the House of Assembly must come from the ruling party. Nowhere. As we speak in the United States of America, these two houses of legislature are controlled by the opposition party. And yet, you don't see any thuggish, any brigand manner of wanting to lord it over the legislative arm by all means. What that tells you is that all the dramatist personnel in all of these issues are defending their fiefdom. The governor on one side, the speaker, the substantive speaker, because the guy that was smuggled in by 7 cannot in any way claim to be speaker of that state house of assembly.
Okay.
By all of the, all of the analysis that have been made, 7, of course, obviously cannot be greater than 23, except we're in a banana republic where counting is done from the reverse. That's one. 2, they don't even meet the quorum set by their own books. When you see a people who cannot be guided by the laws they made for themselves, then you put a very big question mark on the integrity of those kind of people.
You asked earlier about what the role of the people is in all of this. Earlier, before that declaration of impeachment, we also saw a protest by certain people in the state capital, EKITI, came up with different placards asking for the removal of the speaker.
We have to be circumspect about all of this protest. We have witnessed in this country before, I mean, situations where crowds are rented to achieve some specific purposes. Even the last declaration by the president, I mean, there were fisticuffs, there were fracas at the end of the declaration about how much you are going to pay me for the job that we have done. So the fact that people are carrying placards before media men and all that does not say that, the people of EKITI are the ones who are clamoring for that. For goodness sake, the people of EKITI rejected Governor Kayode Fayemi at the polls. If there will soon be another election, very soon, EKITI people, both those in PDP and whoever, who may be against the speaker as it stands, should wait until another election and then vote in their own representatives into the legislature, and via that means remove the speaker legitimately, legally. It's part of politics. But to assemble 7 men with 300 policemen with an armored personnel carrier to forcefully removing, a speaker and installing a charlatan, an individual backed by only 7 out of 26 members, stands logic on the head.
Well, some have also questioned what the 19 APC lawmakers are doing in Lagos, because the speaker said earlier that there's a possibility of forming a House of Assembly in exile.
You see, let's not look at issues from the reverse. I think the place to start is, why are they out of EKITI? And with the kind of violence that we saw at that assembly, for goodness sake, these lawmakers, these 19 lawmakers, are not saving EKITI. And given the culture of impunity, that even look at the elected governor, the way he's talking, leaves more to be desired about the chief executive of the state. Yes, I know that divisions, competition that flows ineluctably from electoral process takes a long while, to heal in Nigeria. But for goodness sake, the moment you become the chief executive of a state, the governor of a state, what our politicians should know is that very moment they become governor to all, including those who did not vote for you. I recall the last time Obama defeated McCain or who in the last presidential election, the first time Obama had the shot. And at one of the functions, there was an American who was trying to, cast aspersion on the person of Obama.
Okay.
And there and then, McCain had to caution the person that, look, Yeah, it is true that we contested this election, but if Obama could inspire, that was his word, the confidence of Americans and they have voted him in, he becomes president of America and he must be so respected.
You know, earlier we talked about the relationship that exists between leadership and the electorate, talking about the electorate leadership probably being a product of the state of mind in the electorate. Does it not occur to you that these are elected political officers, elected by the people of a state, and these are people that the electorate probably saw as the best option for them? Is it a problem of the personality, or don't you see it being probably a problem of the society at this time?
Well, it's a problem of the society, you know, and then the people make the society. But you see, what I want us to underscore here is that here the people will make a choice out of available options, and the society throws up these options. And I have just made the point, between a Fayemi and a Fayoshe, EKITI people voted for Fayoshe and threw out Fayemi. I'm saying in the same vein, democracy is a process. They should wait until they have the opportunity to vote out the speaker. If he is not representing their hopes and aspirations. Now, but to forcefully want to remove somebody so democratically elected leaves more to be desired. And let me also sound a note of warning to these political jobbers. If you follow what is happening in South Sudan, the current crisis in South Sudan started between two individuals, the president and his vice. So all of these characters, both at EKITI and at the national level, who feels that they have the monopoly of violence, should know that when human beings are pushed to the wall, violence can be democratized. And once that happens, this country will be the worse for it. So nobody should think that because he controls the apparatuses of force, could then deploy it with reckless abandon. We should understand that those who are disadvantaged can also be forced to take to arms. And when that happens, we know that it will just be like that proverbial hen who perches, on a thin rope. Neither the bird nor the rope will know no peace.
Some have questioned the role of the police and security agencies in all of this. We also saw at the National Assembly the involvement of the police and trade of blames here and there. But what should be the actual role of the Nigerian police when it comes to legislative matters like this?
You see, the Nigerian police is an appendage of the executive arm of government. It will only take, a very discerning Inspector General of Police to be able to understand that is Inspector General of Nigeria's police and not the Inspector General or the State Commissioner of a particular president or governor. Are you getting my point? And that is why some of us have had to challenge, the process that often leads to the emergence of Inspector General of Police, of Commissioners of Police, etc. You see, because if care is not taken, the police can just be doing the bidding of the chief executive, which is what we have witnessed both at Abuja and in Ado-Ekiti. And that is the way democracy works. It is only those who are in charge, in this case the Inspector General of Police and then the Commissioner of Police in the respective states, who will be able to then, define for themselves the kind of role they will play in the democratic process. Yeah, let me take the EKITI example. If the governor says, okay, go take over the state assembly, they cannot refuse that lawful order because that also will come with some consequence. But they can be there. And refuse to apply any force. Don't be overzealous, because they are supposed to provide security for both those in government and those outside it. The same thing in the Abuja saga. You will see that the policemen were being overzealous. They are being more Catholic than the Pope. And in that instance, I'm sure the action of the Tambuwa group was to show that, look, you don't have the monopoly of violence. And that's why I signaled that warning earlier. Because what it means is that virtually all of these people have made substantial money by one way or the other, legitimate or illegitimate means of making money. And what does it take to import arms and ammunition into the country? So don't be surprised that if caution is thrown into the wind like we are witnessing in all of these states, and then it's transmuting into the center of government, maybe when next that Tambuwa and others are going, they will go with their own illegal policemen too, and then they can face the police.
Do you think that as a country we have indeed learnt our lessons? Because we talked about what happened at the Nigeria Governors Forum, we talked about the River State, Edo State, and now it's happening again in EKITI. What is it exactly that we're not getting right here?
Everything. Everything we're not getting right. We don't understand what democracy is all about. We don't understand that our actions, our inactions are meant to further the welfare of the people. We don't understand that, look, in a democracy, you can only have some time because it's a process. And of course, because all of these individuals are there to feather their own nests. So it's like claiming a territory for yourself. If, it's not going my way, then it must not go the other way. So these are all of the problems. And until we rein in on our excesses, on our greed as individuals, and then understand that we're in governance or in government to serve the people and nothing more, all of this will continue for a very long while.
So let's just take a couple of calls. MCL, can we have the phone line on the screen? Okay, it just popped up now. Yeah, put a call through. We'll appreciate you to turn down the volume of your TV set and let's keep the conversation on telephone. There's a little delay between what we say in the studio and what you hear on your StarTimes device. So the moment your call is acknowledged, just go ahead with your contribution. Thank you for your continuous cooperation. Now, you see, the big question has always been, how do all of these ultimately impact on the average person in EKITI? But then, what does this portend for the 2015 general election?
Danger. It portends grave danger for 2015 general election and, of course, democratic consolidation in Nigeria.
But isn't there anyone who can interfere? The House of Reps, the presidency? Why is everyone keeping mute on this issue?
Interfere in what?
We saw Mr. President interfering in...
It happened in EKITI 2 days after
football.
It happened in Abuja. So, yeah, football. What is football?
Mr. President brought back Stephen Keshi for the Super Eagles.
To fail to defend the title you freely won. You understand? You see, we must understand that if we must get results, we must work hard. It's the same in our democratic, journey. We feel that, look, we can just get everything by good luck. No! Luck can only take you to some point. And like Obasanjo once said, yes, luck can earn you a job, but you have to do the job.
Okay, just a minute. Let's take this call. Good morning, Castle. It's calling from Abuja. Castle, good morning. Are you there?
Hello.
Yeah, good morning. Go ahead with the contribution.
Hello.
Right here with you. Go ahead, Castle.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. I'm not hearing if you are hearing me. You see, now this situation we are witnessing, It's like our political leaders have not learned their lesson, and they are inciting the military to come back. You see, it's unfortunate that we have to mention the PDP. In all these issues, we find the PDP as the arrowhead. You see, so that is just the issue. Look at what happened in Burkina Faso recently. You can be threat to Nigeria easily. You see, you don't struggle for power by force. You see, if force will meet with force, then the masses will suffer. So it's better trade it with peace and let us focus to 2015 in a peaceful manner. That's my contribution.
Thank you very much, Castle, for your contribution from Abuja. Well, will that military be an option? Of course, we've heard Chief of Staff say that they are in full cooperation with the Nigerian democracy and there's no such thing about going back.
Yeah, well, it's undesirable to contemplate, the coming back of the military. It's an aberration. The military, even now, is even worse because in their constitutional duty they are failing. So to add politics to it will further decimate an already ailing Nigerian army. So for me, the military option should be ruled out. But that's at the level of wishful thinking. If the reality on grounds, by the time the dramatist personnel, the political gladiators are not able to resolve issues amicably, if they resort to violence, to the use of force, to coercion and all that, the masters of the game that are the military will just find an easy in route into governance. So it's also the same warning that we must continue to sound.
Let's take this call from Anambra. Good morning, okay?
Okay. Yeah, my contribution there is
Good morning.
like what they are doing in Anambra, what they are doing in Nigeria is just like inviting the military to take over. Because you check on do EKITI, National Assembly, and the River State. You see that whatever anything they are doing there, it's just they are trying to try out from getting what we are saying that we are getting from the democracy dividends and this and that. But really, another time you can say that 2 people or 5 people or one person is above of 2 people. We are not in a emergency. We will put 2 people at one time and make it become one. So my contribution there is, if at all that maybe the presidency or the power in the president want to get this right, they will get this right. But they are doing things in the way of their own favor. They are doing things in the way of have their own ways. So that's what they are doing. And it's going against our democracy.
That's all right, okay.
For me to say, I would say that I would like to military to take over. Despite all the political parties, and start afresh. Let us start afresh. Because what they are doing now, there is no difference between military and the democracy. So that is my contribution.
It's all right, okay. Thank you for your contribution from Anambra. The question has always been people participation in politics. How informed are people and are the Nigerian people in making the right decision, especially in times like this?
You see, I can tell you that Nigerian people are not involved in all of this. If you look at the emergence of President Goodluck Jonathan as president of Nigeria, with how many votes? Out of how many? A large chunk of the Nigerian people are disenfranchised, either deliberately or inadvertently. Okay. But you see, the point to note is that even the political parties are not helping matters. I say this because you see all these political activities only when elections are coming. One of the functions of any political party, properly so called, is what we call political education, political enlightenment. You understand? You engage the people, you canvass policy options, policy alternatives. You can't find all of this in Nigeria. Everybody is interested in the capture of power, and they do that with reckless abandon, and that is what is playing out now. So until we realize that we need to mobilize the people, we need to inform the people, we need to educate the people, we need to enlighten the people, and the political parties, especially those who call themselves progressive political parties, have a very great role to play in all of this. I'm sure.
Just a minute, Doctor. Let's take this call from Kaduna. Good morning, Mohammed.
Good morning.
Welcome to Call Digest.
I want to make a contribution and also a question.
Go ahead,
I
please.
think what Nigeria is facing at the moment with the current administration is a display of the kind of politics that is being done in the South-South region. In a situation where once you have an opposition, the opposition is being treated like a mafia. If anybody who has stayed in the South-South region before, when you see politics going on, this is the way it takes on. But it's unfortunate that the presidency is now using an arm of government to display that kind of politics. In the South-South, you might use thugs and drugs, but presently now, the Jonathan administration are using the police force, like the gentleman on the desk said. It might lead. Every human being has a threshold, and at some point in time, you never can tell who is going to start rebelling at what period in time, and still, it's the people who would suffer. Now, in line with EKITI State, I would like to ask a question. When it comes to impeachment, after impeachment and swearing in, we all know Nigerians, it was an illegal impeachment, and the media as well. I keep saying the new elected speaker, the media should stop that, because he's not an elected speaker. We all know that. Even kids would know that. We have a parliamentary, for kids in Nigeria. When you see them doing even those things like this. So my question is, who swears in an elected speaker? For the people, 7 of them who have selected the speaker, who is the judge? Who swears in that speaker in the state? Now, the judiciary has a lot, apart from the masses, because the problem is from the people of the state, not opposing what is going on, because each member that was driven to Lagos is representing a constituency in their region. Now, for the judiciary, I don't know if the Supreme Court or Court of Appeal and wait for a case to be brought into the jurisdiction before they can handle it. But in the state now, who swears in the speaker?
It's all right, Mohammed.
There should be sanctions to such judges, because it's totally illegal and spoils the judicial system completely. We understand in the state, the government found was mobilized thugs to even drive away thugs. So I don't know.
Well, I believe you made your point there, Mohammed. Thank you for calling us from Kaduna. He talked about the involvement of the Nigerian judiciary in all of this. And you know, what you hear them say is, well, they should go to court. But you know how long it takes to get justice in court. How rarely do you see the judiciary impacting on all of these developments in Nigeria?
Well, you see, the unfortunate aspect is that all organs of government in Nigeria is politicized. And once that happens, it becomes extremely difficult to take, the best policy option amongst available alternatives.
Okay.
You see, in all of this, let me start from the purported impeachment. Ordinarily, the police should be the one to prevent such illegality happening in a state house of assembly. But like EKITI, like Rivers, like Edo, like the National Assembly, you see the Nigerian police shamelessly partisan. So, what happens? In the same vein, the judiciary, although I am always very circumspect in outrightly blaming the judiciary, what I often like to do is to say that the judge, because just as we have seen terrible cases like those of Neron, Basi Peme, etc., we have also seen courageous judges, you know, who had...
Let me just hold you for a minute.
Okay.
We have a caller from Anambra. Good morning, Harry.
Okay, hello.
Morning. Go ahead with the contribution, please.
Okay, please, I want to make a contribution. And many persons have come to argue for or against the issue of grant. But I want to speak totally from a different perspective as an average Nigerian witnessing what is happening in our democratic state. I think all of them are the same. Both the PDP, both the APC, they are just one youth together. It's a matter of interest. Now the opposition has found it convenient for them because it's a season to emphasize only that service should not be greater than this, price should not be greater than this, but they choose not to, diplomatically choose not to emphasize the National Assembly where APC is a minority. And they want the minority to also be the speaker and preside over the majority, which will allow that there will be more problems, except with the consent of the PDP in the House. That is how it is done. So to my mind, they are all the same, my brother. It is when it favors them, they choose to ignore. But when it doesn't favor them, that is where you now see them coming up with different kind of calculations, my brother. They are all the same. And I want to encourage Nigerians to speak. Everybody found in this present democratic situation should not be voted for again in 2015. You need fresh people. After all, they see that youths are the leaders of tomorrow. They have that tomorrow will never be. Please, my brother, they are all the same. That is my contribution.
Harry, thank you very much for your contribution. We have to wrap up this segment now. What way forward for the EKITI people in all of this? In a minute.
Well, the way forward for EKITI people is for the governor to realize that he's governor over EKITI people, including those who voted for him and those who voted against him, including members of his party in the House and those who are not in the House. It is for him to extend the olive branch to the 19 lawmakers. Otherwise, it will run the state into crisis. And then the APC lawmakers must also understand that they have voted in by the EKITI people, and they should remove their partisan toga and do the bidding of the EKITI people. EKITI people voted for Fayose under the platform of the PDP. Therefore, they take his bills, they take his nominations, they do their job as legitimately as they can and ensure that that state is not grounded. So the two parties to this conflict must understand that they are serving the EKITI people. And I think the onus lies on the governor to extend his olive branch.
Dr. Dele Ashiro, political scientist, a lecturer with the Department of Political Science at the University of Lagos. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for the invitation.
On Cold Ideas. We're going to take a commercial break now. When I come back, we'll talk more as we get some politicians and their unfulfilled promises. Stick around, don't go away.
In February 2015, Nigerians will vote for their next president. So we asked one simple question. What do Nigerians need?
A vibrant economy.
Make business better.
A safer environment for my family.
Better school for my children. Strong leadership. Unity.
This is a beautiful country. We're enterprising, optimistic, and we are also resilient. There are many issues that affect us all, but I believe together we can resolve them and overcome them.
Schools are often inaccessible, ill-equipped, or simply not conducive learning environments. Without education, our children cannot achieve their potential.
No nation can rise above the level of educated people. Education is not a luxury, but it's a must for everybody, for every human being.
My classroom is the Nigeria of tomorrow.
Poverty is the enemy of progress. Nigeria must create opportunity for its people to thrive.
I want to work to provide for my family.
Nigeria has to empower the private sector to continue to play its role as the biggest and largest job creator. Small scale, medium scale, large scale entrepreneurs must be encouraged.
Safety and security are concerns for all Nigerians.
I want my child to grow up in a safe Nigeria.
The primary responsibility of any government, and as enshrined in our constitution, is to protect the lives and property of individuals. It is only with security that the inhabitants of this country will be able to unleash all their potentials in terms of development, in terms of enterprise. So it is essential that government pays attention.
What do Nigerians need?
A leader that understands the importance of education.
Atiku Abubakar is the founder of a chain of schools that provide quality education of a standard comparable to any country in the world.
Someone that understands the economy.
Someone to create an enabling environment for jobs.
Atiku Abubakar understands business. In fact, he's one of the largest private employers in Adamawa and Rivers states.
A leader that can unite the nation, north, south, east, and west.
Atiku Abubakar transcends tribalism and religious sentiment.
A leader with experience.
Atiku Abubakar spent 20 years in the public service, served for 8 years as Vice President of Nigeria, and was Chairman of the National Economic Council. He's qualified to lead our nation to a brighter tomorrow.
This is one of the greatest countries in Africa and in the world. This country is blessed. With the right kind of administration, this country can be transformed. So it is my desire to give back to this country all that is within my power to do. I am Atiku Abubakar. Together we can build a Nigeria for all.
Welcome back. It's Core Digest Monday, and if you require a national platform to make known your political dreams, you know how to reach us. The numbers scrolling on your screen right now. Well, I'm joined now on the second segment of the show by Biodun Showme, a public affairs analyst. Good morning, and thank you for finding time to join us. We're discussing issues ahead 2015 general elections, politicians, and unfulfilled promises. Now, I'm sure that you followed the stories over the week from the National Assembly to EKITI State and all of that. One of the things that comes to mind is when politicians require electorates for votes, they come with quite a number of interesting promises. I'll provide water, I'll provide light, I'll provide food and all of that. Over the years, this year makes it 15 years of democracy for Nigeria. How would you describe fulfillment of promises along this line?
Yeah, it's something very interesting, you know, when you look at the way politicians behave in relation to their promises to the electorates in Nigeria. You realize that you need to actually carry out an in-depth study into what could drive a political class, a ruling class, or political class in general, you know, to approach the electorates and make promises which they know right from day one they will never fulfill in the first instance. Number two, you ask yourself again, what could be the driving factor behind the mindless corruption, you know, going on in the country? Because the bane, you know, the corruption is a real bane to our development. If you've taken all the resources needed to provide the hospitals which you promised the electorate, it's quite clear that the hospitals will not be provided. If you've sneaked all the money you need to build roads, it's quite clear that roads will not be built. So why make the promises in the first instance when you know that you are moving in to actually loot the resources, which means you will not be able to, you know, fulfill your promises? That is one part of it. The second part of it is, what about integrity as a person? when Nigerian political class stand, before the law and before God, and then swear with the Bible and swear to uphold the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, then only to turn around and undermine the whole thing. A typical example is what is going on in EKITI, when the governor just recently, swore to uphold the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, but now is doing exactly the opposite, less than, a month or two, that he got sworn in. So you begin to ask, what is it that they're very forgetful, or Nigerian politicians are highly deceitful, or what is it that drives those thinking? Because you made a promise, then you now go and swear an oath, to protect the Constitution of the Federal Republic, only to end up, not doing both. So
is
it's
there
quite
also a possibility that over time we've had over ambitious promises, unrealistic promises? For instance, you have states that are highly indebted, their internally generated revenue are quite low, and then you see a politician coming to say, if you elect me as a governor, I'm going to provide you paradise on earth. And you match that with the economic realities, you know that that's far from being the truth. Is that also a possibility, in our school of thought as regards why these people have not been able to fulfill their endless promises?
No, I don't think so. And if it applies at all, I don't think it will apply to any significant number of states. What you need to do is go and pick up the state's budget, including federal government budget. What you will see a pattern of you spending 70% on the current expenditure. It's quite clear to anybody. You don't need a soothsayer to tell you that when you vote majority of your revenue, for consumption, without investment, in capital projects, what it simply means is you are, increasing unemployment. Two, you will not be able to fulfill most of your promises because they are supposed to be capital projects. And three, it basically means that you become a consuming nation without, with a limited ability to raise your income through IGR, because you are not expanding your economy significantly. So that is what it means. They know what that means. They prepare the budget, they defend the budget. The House of Assembly and National Assembly assemblies are there, to ensure that that will not happen. But in reality, we've seen the National Assembly also, rubber stamping it, knowing that the budget is highly recurrent in nature, not capital intensive. So, and then we keep talking about wanting to reduce unemployment. How do you do that? The second aspect is this: the character of our investment in capital projects, even that little 30%, the character of our investment matters. Are we investing to create the conducive environment for the private sector, to invest? Is that what we are doing? Two, are we investing massively in infrastructure? Are we investing in things that will alleviate the poverty which our people are facing in terms of housing, in terms of our health institutions, in terms of agriculture? What is the character of our investment? Go and check our budget. Majority of the capital expenditure, is spent by an NPC through joint venture projects, and it goes into oil sector production. How many people can the oil sector continue to employ? What about agriculture? What about industries? These are the real issues. The nature of those projects also matters, despite the fact that they only vote a very minute percentage of the budget for capital projects. So these are some of the, it's not that they don't know. The truth of the matter is politicians look for an easy way to do their things. In Nigeria, that's the character of our people. And then there's huge corruption everywhere. Huge corruption of monumental level that we've never heard of in this country. And nobody is held to account for it. And because of that, we see politicians unable to fulfill promises voluntarily made, and also to renege or to even subvert the oath of office which they took, on coming into office. So that has been the character, the nature of the problems we are faced with, in Nigeria. That is the political class, to the point that, is getting to a stage where people are beginning to lose hope.
And but some have also wondered the role of the electorate, or the people, so to speak, in not only making leadership accountable, but being able to x-ray the processes and the procedures of governance. Because we see people who look similarly laid back, who are not concerned. It doesn't matter whether the roads are fixed, it doesn't matter whether there is light or not, as long as I go to work and then I can make ends meet, cater for my family, then I'm all right. We seem to make governance and leadership, a business for the political class, and then we just go about our daily business. What do you think is responsible for that?
Yeah, again, it's tied to unfulfilled promises, made to the people, by successive administrations, politicians in the country, in all areas. And the people now started feeling, look, if they're not fulfilling the promises, our roads are still as bad as ever. We don't have pipe-borne water. The hospitals are not better than mortuaries, and we can't afford the services being provided by the private sector. We don't have good housing, shelter, affordable housing for all. So when people continue to look at these basic things which they need to survive, and these things are not being provided, by successive regime, they begin to lose consciousness. They begin to lose hope. And then they desensitize themselves and then say, maybe it's time I have to worry about myself instead of worrying about everybody. And that is exactly what the corrupt Nigerian political class will prefer, so that you think about yourself, don't think about everybody. That leads to the issue of stomach infrastructure, which was brought in, recently to desensitize the people for that, to say, look, why are you worrying about the whole community? What is your business with doing roads? Not minding whether those are the necessary infrastructure which the private sector needs to see, to have, to be able to invest. Why are you doing that? And why not concentrate on yourself and then think about your personal stomach infrastructure? And, very interesting, when you compare what happened in a state that pioneered it in EKITI now, and then you compare it to another state in the same southwest, you begin to understand how people are being misled. In EKITI, for instance, apart from this burnt bricks industry, which Fayemi just activated in EKITI state, there is no single industry. But they're talking about personal stomach infrastructure for individuals, rather than creating, the enabling environment through the provision of infrastructure to enable the private sector to invest.
But that's obviously quite appealing to the people who also have the opinion that all of this major infrastructural development you talk about, even in its implementation, there are just simple ways of settling the boys. And, there's a political structure that handles all of the awarding of contracts, and the money just seems to move around the particular circle of people. So when you have the electorate who seem quite far away from the engine room where the money is coming out, then stomach infrastructure sounds like the miracle they've been waiting for all these years.
Yeah, precisely. That is the real problem. To now disorient the people, about providing infrastructural facilities within the country, it's even a tragedy. It's worse than, the situation of unfulfilled promises, because now, one, politicians have failed to fulfill their promises, and two, they are now trying to destroy the psyche of the people itself by saying, look, just worry about yourself, don't worry about your neighbor. Worry about what you can get for yourself, don't worry about your neighbor. And that is what they're doing now. But like I was saying, when you compare a state like Ogun that invested massively into infrastructure, you can see the benefit. Ogun State now is now the industrial hub for the country, the largest number of industries in Nigeria. And this situation, there's evidence to show that the private sector got more interested in what Ogun State government is doing in terms of provision of roads, bridges, modern estates, and all that.
Well, how long does it take to see all of these development trickle down to the average person in that state, the average Nigerian family that require what they call their daily bread?
Yeah, the solution is not, these sensitizing the people or emphasizing on personal infrastructure. The solution is still in providing infrastructure to enable the private sector to come in.
Let me just
and
hold you
invest.
a minute to take this call. Just please hold that thought. We have Tochukwu calling from Anambra, right? Did I get that? Tochukwu, good morning.
Good morning. Please, my contribution to this topic is that I think that leaders have been playing pranks with us. And we as the masses, we are contributing to it. Because what we have discovered as masses is that we no longer have leaders who are inspired by the desire to serve. What we have are leaders who are motivated by the negative influence of lack. The need to amass more wealth, get it more. That is the crop of leaders we have. And as masses, we can change the equation by emphasizing more on what you have done and not what you will do. We should move the attention from "I will do" and to "I have done." What have you done before? That is verifiable. Not "I have done it theory." That is verifiable. I'm currently putting food on the table of the common man. Your guest there talked about so much infrastructure. Let me tell you, my brother, we need other infrastructure. We need suppose, but that is when you have eaten. The common man out there who have not seen food to eat, if you come with garri and rice, that is the first rescue mission. So much infrastructure is one of the two that these crop of politicians are using now to get our votes because people are hungry. So my brother, in conclusion, I want to say this. We are the masses. We should please emphasize more now on what politicians have done before. Because everybody will come out to tell you. If you come to the street as a reporter, please do a special program, come to the street. And you will discover that the political industry is the most lucrative industry in Nigeria today. That is why everybody wants to be a politician. The youth, the children, the women, everybody wants to be a politician because it is lucrative. I think we should emphasize on what I will do. That is why they keep on telling because the intention want to come and do it.
It's all right.
So that is my contribution to this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tochukwu calling from Anambra.
Yeah, it's making very important points on those issues. But when you now take it into consideration, what do you... The problem we have is politicians are not fulfilling their promises. We're having more or less underdevelopment rather than having development. We've not been able to provide employment and provide food for our people. Now the issue for the ordinary folks is, look, what is in it for me? How would I feed myself and feed my family?
Exactly.
And that is what is fueling the issue of stomach infrastructure, which politicians mischievously are promoting. Now, is that the solution? The solution is not that. What the solution is in all Nigerians, rising up to make Section 2 of the Nigerian Constitution justiciable. Our forefathers, actually saw through this. They knew we could come to this situation and then inserted in Section 2 of the Nigerian Constitution that where, you don't have a job, the Nigerian state is not able to provide for you, then they have a duty, to provide welfare benefit for you. It's right there. But the problem we face currently is not justiciable. You cannot take it to court. So what we need to do is for the National Assembly to amend that Section 2 to make sure that it is justiciable so that then the onus will be on government. If we can't provide the just for you, then you have to provide, the welfare benefit, for the people. That is the right way to go. The right way to go, the wrong way to go is to say, look, we don't care about what happens in the community. You don't need to develop roads, don't build bridges, don't fund schools. Just let us share the money, that is not the right way to go under the guise of stomach infrastructure.
Let's take this call from Abuja. Good morning, Quadri.
All right. Good morning.
Morning. Go ahead with the contribution, please.
I want to make a little contribution to the wonderful program that is going on this budget. The issue of politics in Nigeria, to the best of my knowledge, is not well. The structure is not well designed. The picture is not affected to the average Nigerian or the local electorate themselves. before we have idea of what politics is actually telling us. The politics itself, to the best of my knowledge, is speaking a language that is different from the language we hear. Most of us in Nigeria are not well educated to the level of a language that electorates the politicians are speaking, or the politics itself is speaking.
Okay.
I am of the opinion that we should come down to give Nigeria a good picture of what democracy is all about. Then, when the picture that politicians are painting is not in line with what we have idea of, we will be able to complain or begin to agitate. No, this is not what politics is saying, but what democracy is saying. But when we don't know what democracy is all about, we saw democracy as just voting in, somebody go in there, rule, and come out. Next time, we vote another person, go in, rule, and come out. We don't know exactly the picture of democracy. So I'm of the opinion that the Nigerian elite should come together and give us the idea of where democracy is taking us to.
That's all right.
We will know that we are on the right path.
Thank you very much, Quadri, for your contribution. Calling in from Abuja. You know, people have not really been able to identify the concept of change, because year in, year out, election year in, year out, you hear the same electoral promises. It's the same thing from education to security. Of course, it has now dwindled down to security. Most of people who want to become president are saying that, well, the primary responsibility of government is security and welfare, and we're going to tackle Boko Haram. But have you identified that there is now a style in governance? A governor comes in, kickstarts some massive road projects, and then that project stays on uncompleted for 4 years. Then he comes back to use that particular uncompleted project to campaign for continuity. You say, well, if you want this road completed, you have to vote in this particular political party so that you don't have uncompleted projects littering all around the state. What is that concept of change that will take us from the status quo of having little development, 1 step forward, 4 steps backward, and then consequently it does impact positively on the Nigerian people?
Yeah, for instance, in Nigeria today, there are about 1.68 trillion abandoned projects in the country.
Okay.
When you have 1.68 trillion naira abandoned projects in the country, you know where the problem is. Each administration initiates projects, some of them laudable projects, some of them white elephant projects, and once the government changes, the successor.
Let me just pick this call. Yusuf is waiting online. Good morning, Yusuf. How's Abuja this morning?
Hello.
Good morning.
Fine, thank you.
Let's go ahead with the contribution.
Well, I've been listening to the analysts speaking to. My little contribution or my observation is just that I think in Nigeria we need to understand the meaning of democracy. Because as late fella will call it, it's nothing but demonstration of grace. Because this country is a country where you have people just thrive in impunity. Supposed to be. Take for example what just happened in EKITI. 7 members came out and said, we have done this, we have impeached the speaker, and the governor came out and said, yes, this is the right thing to do, I've accepted it. Where does this happen? You know, we keep going back to the drawing board every day, day in, day out. Is that how to rule a country? The country belongs to all of us. Look at the issues, what happened in the National Assembly. Police just took the laws into their hands and did what they did, and nobody is saying anything. This is how we have been. So, gentlemen, I think the problem we really have, apart from the corruption we have become a way of life, is just impunity. That's what we should be addressing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Yusuf, for your contribution from Abuja. Sarah, I think that we've had enough calls from Abuja. Let's feel the pulse from outside Abuja, Kaduna, and Anambra so that the other parts of the country wouldn't feel this is not a consensus arrangement. It's primary election. Let's feel the pulse from other side. You were talking about trillion of naira uncompleted projects.
According to some estimates, we have 1.68 trillion naira uncompleted projects. These projects were not just projects started by Obasanjo or Yaradua.
Okay.
Some of them were already there, under the military. They've not been completed till now. So each administration has been abandoning them. They need their own legacy projects. And then this is how we managed to find ourselves where we are now. It all ended up in waste of public funds, which is what we are beginning to see. Then you now have a disconnect between the previous administration and the current administration. So you ask yourself, government is supposed to be, continuous. There has to be continuity in government. So how come that is not happening in Nigeria? Because people personalize government. They think it's their own personal regime. The country is their personal estate, and they have a right to do what they can do. So some of them actually use that to come back and say, look, I need to complete these ongoing projects because if I am removed, or if I fail to win or come back into office, my successor, I have no assurance that my successor will complete those projects. But it also marks the failing of the House of Assembly or National Assembly, let's say legislature generally, because the legislature are supposed to scrutinize the budget, they have oversight functions over the executive. They're supposed to say, look, hang on a minute, Mr. Governor or Mr. President, how come you want to start new project? What about this? What about this? We need to look at the completion of this, or else it will lead to waste of public funds. Yeah. So we've not had a legislature, that is, how do I put it? Should I use the word patriotic enough or proactive enough, to play its role properly?
Let's just take
Part of the problem is also because the legislature is being funded through the executive. So there's another reason for that.
We'll get there. We have a call from Lagos. Good morning, Rotimi.
Hello,
good morning. How are you today?
Good morning.
Good morning, my brother.
Yes, I quite agree with the analyst in the studio that when you see the current expedition going past the capital expedition, you should know that there is nothing tangible that government will do. Looking at the budget, I'm a capital accountant, looking at the budget every day, you will see that there is nothing they can do. There is nothing tangible they can do. You can see now they are adjusting their budget because there is a fall in the price of oil price in the international market. I have an uncle in the state who told me that the reason why they voted 5 years of government is that there is a normal expenses that they normally share every Friday in their office that we block that go any longer, and so on and so forth. He cited the example of the teachers that were to do exam as part of the thing. These are the things that cannot lead to development if we continue that way. How long are we going to continue with so much infrastructure at the expense of the capital infrastructure that is supposed to develop our nation? You can see no government has a development plan. No government has a development plan. If you go to a advanced country, when they say in year 2000 and so, this is going to be their plan. This is what they are going to do. By that year, you will see that thing being established because they have a development plan. If American start development today, and we have to go to meet them in other years, we can't meet them. Because we don't have a plan at all. This government of the day doesn't have any plan at all. I hope one day God will save us from these people. Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling Rotimi from Lagos. Thank God we have someone from the Southwest. He talked about recurring expenditure being always higher than capital. With the fall in oil price now, the federal government is talking about austerity measures, cutting down on cost of travels by ministers and all of that. Do you see this whipping us back to line?
No. I don't really think so. I think the federal government is just scratching the surface. We have not seen any willingness or any remorse on the part of politicians, to say, look, we have made this nation too much. This nation has been bleeding severely. It's hemorrhaging badly. What do we need to stop this funds hemorrhage? It's to show, any signs of seriousness. Saying that you want to tax aeroplane. How many private jets do we have in the country? Maybe 125, 200, 250.
Luxury goods.
You
like
want to tax luxury goods. How much money are you going to make?
But the
from
good
it?
news is
I'm in favor of it, but the real issue is this. What they're running away from is this. A third of the national budget is spent on running bureaucracy.
Okay.
Running the National Assembly. Why can't we look at that? Why can't we look at the emoluments, of ministers? Why can't we look at the presidency spending 1 billion naira on food?
Let's quickly take this call from Imo State. Good morning, Raymond. Oh, I'm afraid we lost that. Sorry for holding you for too long.
Why should being a legislator be more lucrative than owning an industry? Why can't we look at cutting the enormous funds being given to the Senate?
Don't you think it's going to get there? Because there are also issues of taxation, taxing salary earners from a particular level of income.
Need to do that, but they should not forget there is the Oron-Sayes report.
That's right.
The duplication, and in some cases, you have 3 agencies doing the same functions. We have so many problems. We need to go back to Oron-Sayes report and implement it. If we implement Oron-Sayes report alone, the federal government will save nothing less than 250 billion just like that.
That's
in
white
a year.
paper.
And that is more than what they can get from taxing jets. Yes, I'm in favor. They should tax those jets, and also the champagne. They will, just by implementing that Oron-Sayes white paper will be sufficient, to at least reduce the problem currently, while they emphasize on taxing the rich, getting the rich to pay more.
I'll just quickly take this call from Lagos. Badejo, good morning. You have 1 minute. Go ahead with the contribution.
Hello.
Go ahead, please, Badejo.
Hello.
Go ahead, we're with you.
Hello.
Okay, beyond all of this now, does it baffle you at all that the Oron-Sayes report was just thrown into the trash can, and then when this austerity, this falling oil price came up, they picked it back up?
Yeah, because Oron-Sayes report, the federal government had never shown any seriousness, in wanting to implement Oron-Sayes.
Just a minute, I think Badejo is there. Are you there now, Badejo? Okay, please go ahead.
The report in itself, will reduce wastage in public sector budget, 1. Number 2, it will also free funds, for capital projects.
Why wasn't it adopted initially?
Very strange. Nobody can explain that. So many people did advise the federal government to do that. We saw the unwillingness of the federal government, to implement it, partly because also it's also job for the boys. Election is coming. You need to, it's Kwango. Give the boys, the jobs. Let them head the Kwangos, and so that the president, they can vote for the president or support the president in his own way. So it's nothing about the interest of Nigeria. It's about the interest of individuals, politicians. So we need to go back to Oron-Sayes report. Once we implement the Oron-Sayes report, 1. 2, we need to pass the PIB, because the PIB will ensure, that's the petroleum industry bill, it will ensure that the oil is not calculated, the revenue is not calculated from the point of the storage where it's taken out, rather than from what you actually pump out from from the soil. That is where it should be calculated. The oil majors are saying that, look, their own argument is some could be lost on transit, due to piracy, due to one problem or the other. But how many people do buy a vehicle from a dealer and then say, no, you will not pay until the vehicle gets to the destination, in case armed robbers can steal it? So there are a lot of things they can do, to halt, this problem which we have. But that said, those issues which the minister raised, the finance minister, the taxing of the rich people, the luxury goods, the jets, needs to go on. But those will not even have any meaningful impact. What they need to do is, 1, pass the PIB, 2, implement Oron-Sayes report. That will go a long way, to haul, a lot of revenue back into the public
into the coffers of the government. Well, it's interesting time again. It's election year, and politicians are coming out with different campaign slogans and all of that. But does it not amuse you, or amaze you, or rather baffle you, that we've not had a system where electorate come together, probably under the canopy of a community or state government, to articulate what they need and what they desire in this new election year, and call for parties and candidates to show their manifesto on how they intend to tackle this challenge? Because the electorates are always at the mercy of what the politician says he wants to do.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we've not gotten to a stage where you say you want to contest election, come out with your manifesto and also show how you're going to pay for it. How did you cost it? How would you fund it?
How do you intend to get the
Given the
money
situation
and all
on
that?
the ground, where would you get the money from? And what will be the output at the end of the day? We've not gotten to that stage simply because we have monetized the whole process, in a way that anyone seeking to contest election, first and foremost, will need to look for a lot of money to give out as gifts, or call it bribe, the electorates. And the moment they do that, people don't ask questions any longer. They think they've taken their own fair share of the goodies, collecting 500 naira, 1,000 naira and there. So we are not asking questions. So we are not even sure that we have the best of us ruling, the rest of us. The situation which we have currently, if you look at the National Assembly or look at even the characters being thrown up recently, people like Mohamed Abacha, Omishori, Fayoshe, and so many other characters in different parts of the country, then you will now come to a conclusion that maybe we have, the worst of us ruling the best of us. I mean, that is the trend which people can see currently, and that is why you see so much violence in the country. We see less development going on. Corruption is at its highest peak ever in our history. So we need to hold this back. The only people who can do that is still the electorates, like you correctly highlighted. It's only the electorate that can ask more questions and say, look, you want to contest, and what do you know about
and
my
we
area?
have the opportunity
what do you need
to do so
about about our needs in this community? And then let us see your manifesto. How do you intend to cost it? Somebody contesting for House of Assembly in one state recently, in Lagos State, who I met recently, told me that in his community, on the constituency projects, he will ensure that they cite an industry that would employ 1,000 people. And I asked him, I know your constituency. There isn't a single land in that constituency which anybody can buy. So where are you going to get the land to build in the first instance? That is one. Number two, what is your business with construction of industries? It's actually the job of the executive. So there are people like that who have no idea. They just come in and tell people what they want to tell them, and after giving the people some money.
And it's amazing the way we also swallow it hook, line, and sinker.
Precisely. People are no longer asking questions. So the electorates need to begin to ask questions. If you want to be a member of the legislature, what is your business with constituency projects to start with?
It's all right.
There should be executive functions.
Biodun Showome is a public affairs analyst. Thank you very much for joining us today on Core Digest. We hope that you find time to join us subsequently as this race ahead of the 2015 election kickstart in full effect. The way did have the worst of us leading the rest of us and all of us. I mean, what role do we have to play in ensuring that we have the best character occupying political offices, especially in the forthcoming 2015 general elections? I hope that you won't just sit back at home and complain and call on Core Digest. I hope that you will actively participate and involve in all of these processes. We had quite a number of callers today. The Abuja people seem to steal the show. A big thank you to Quadri, Carl and Yusuf calling from Abuja. Thank you for your contribution. To Chuku and Henry also called from Anambra, and we had Badijo dropped call, and Raymond who attempted calling us from Imo State. We appreciate you for joining us today on Core Digest Monday. We'll continue tomorrow, God willing. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. Stick around for the top of the hour news.
Core TV News, expanding your view.